Do you have bad habits you really need to break? Well, keep watching. Let's see what we can do about it. The word habit makes us think of something that's bad, but a habit may not necessarily be bad. There are some good habits, and habits that we've learnt over time and that we just do subconsciously. As an example, when we flush the toilet, perhaps a lot of us just almost subconsciously have the habit of going over to the basin and washing our hands. Some people have the habit of flicking off the light switch when they leave a room. Those are good habits. Maybe you even put your clothes out the night before work. Nothing wrong with those habits. I think today, though, we're talking about the habits that are perhaps not good for us and are taking away from your quality of life, and habits that you would like to no longer have. What about that habit of hitting the snooze button over and over and over in the morning? Just not being able to be disciplined enough to get out of bed. Or other habits that you may have had forever, like perhaps biting your nails. But what I'd like to ask you is, why do you want to break this habit? Is it for you or is it for somebody else? Because I think if it's for somebody else, it's going to be very, very difficult to break. If it's for you, it's going to be easier to achieve. I know, I've been there myself. You know you should be on diet. You know you've got a couple of extra kilos to lose. So what do? You start to sneak those little treats. Now, if that were for you, of course you wouldn't sneak them, because who would you be cheating? Only yourself. So first of all, I think, decide who this is for. Now, why have we got habits? We've got habits for many, many different reasons. Most of our habits have been formed over our whole life. Who knows why you started biting your nails? Who knows why you started keeping that chocolate in your bedside drawer to eat privately when nobody else was looking? Perhaps you were always told you were chubby and you're self-conscious about it, and it's made you a sneak eater. Who knows why you started smoking? Perhaps it was peer pressure at the time. Probably some of your teenage friends were smoking and it seemed like the cool thing to do at the time, and now you're battling to give up. And it is very, very difficult to give up smoking. But you could be trying to change many other habits. Perhaps you have begun to procrastinate so badly that you just don't get anything done anymore. Or perhaps you just lose your keys or your bag and your laptop case all the time. Come into the house, can't remember where you've put them. And maybe you're just so tired of being so disorganized. Those things are all bad habits, and they can be changed. So first of all, let's look at where the habits take place. Identify the place. When you sit down to watch TV at night, is that the time when you really get involved in a tense movie that you start biting your nails? Or is it after dinner that you find that you need to have that something sweet that you know you really shouldn't have if you want to lose a couple of kilos? Or is it when you're with certain friends that you find you smoke because they all smoke? Or perhaps it's after you've had a glass of wine. I know when I was giving up smoking, there were certain things that really triggered the desire for a cigarette, and one of them was a glass of wine. And the first thing you need to do is identify those triggers. You need to identify the things that are triggering the reminder to do that thing that you're trying to break the habit of. Next, what time of day is your habit worst of all? Just identify that. Make some notes for yourself. So you've said, what are the triggers? Where does it happen most? When does it happen most? And how do you feel after the habit? Identify that emotion. Do you feel guilty after you've done what you're trying so hard not to do? Or in my case, I know sometimes I eat when my mood is low. And yes, I do feel guilty after having done it. But I also have a feeling of having deserved it. Because, goodness me, look what I've just been through. And I deserve to have this little snack. Now think about these feelings and these emotions and jot them down and identify them. This is all going to help in identifying the triggers and what it is that's making this habit of yours so difficult to give up. Are there other people involved in the trigger of this habit? Do you find the habits harder to kick when you're with certain people? Well, that's another thing to consider. And then when you have identified the triggers, you will need to cut those triggers out of your life. Now, before you panic, I don't mean cut them out forever. I mean cut them out while you are trying to kick this habit. In other words, if having a glass of wine makes you feel like that cigarette, well, just don't have the glass of wine at this stage. Doesn't mean you won't be able to ever have it again. If going out with certain friends who all smoke trigger the habit, just avoid them for a while. And if need be, take them into your confidence and tell them why you're avoiding them. And anybody who smokes will have the highest respect for anybody who's trying to give up. And I really know, I speak from experience, it's a very difficult thing to do. And I have such admiration for anybody who gets it right. And I know myself, it took me years and there were failures. And I kept coming back from it. In fact, I would go so far as to say, when it comes to smoking, that many people may disagree with me, but it's worth trying. It might be easier to actually wean yourself off of the cigarettes. You know, when you're smoking 30 a day and you cut it down to 10, well, at least knowing in an hour's time you're going to have another cigarette sort of will get you through that hour. And as you get better and better at not having a cigarette, you can extend those periods of time. If you're really craving a cigarette and you look at your watch and you say, well, okay, I've got another one due at 3 o'clock, you can get to 3 o'clock because at least there's some light at the end of your tunnel. If somebody says to you, you're never having a cigarette ever again, that is really difficult to do. So, yeah, not everybody's idea of how to give up smoking, but something to consider. Maybe just make those periods in between cigarettes longer and longer, and until you eventually may be having 1 or 2 a day, and the day will come where you don't have a cigarette at all. If you have some other substance addiction, please seek professional help. Please don't attempt to go cold turkey. Not only is it the most awfully painful thing to do, but it's not safe. So if you have become addicted to some substance, get some professional advice. And I know that there is medication for you to take whilst getting off of the substance that you want to kick, and that will help you get through this. So just remember, on that one, don't do it yourself. You may have a habit that really, really irritates your partner or your spouse or your friends. Like talking in the middle of a movie. I know people do it, and it's really annoying, and people do it. And perhaps you have decided you're going to not do that anymore. Well, you might have to give yourself a little reminder. Perhaps stick up a little note on the TV. And when you sit down and you start watching a movie, that can be your reminder. Now, don't be brutal and put there, Rose, don't talk while the movie's on. Just something else, any little thing, a smiley face, whatever it is, but something that will remind you to not talk in the middle of the movie. Now, that's just an example. It could be anything. It could be losing your keys, losing your bag. Put up a little note at your front door to remind you, just to jog your memory that that's right, I've decided on a designated place for my keys, and that's where I'm going to put them. And I'm going to put my bag down next to the desk, table, whatever, at the front door. Make it a designated place, but put up a little note until you get used to it to remind yourself. I use my phone a lot to remind myself. If I have made up my mind that today I'm going to clean out that cupboard that I've been promising myself I was going to do for the last 6 months, I put it on my phone and set a realistic time, but give myself time to get up, have a shower, whatever, and by 10 o'clock it's reminding me. I can switch it off. I can ignore the reminder, but then I'm not really attempting to break the habit of procrastinating, am I? So when the alarm goes off, if I'm not ready for it, then snooze it. Put it on for an hour later, but set a reminder for yourself. Now you're going to embark on this new venture of trying to break whatever habit it is that you feel you really need to kick. Please don't be hard on yourself. If you fail, that's fine. If you are trying to cut out fizzy drinks and you don't have any for 4 days and you have on the 5th day, well, that's 4 days you never had. That's success in my book. But just come back to it. Keep coming back to it. If you're trying to give up smoking and on the 14th day you just weaken and you have a cigarette, so what? Put it behind you and move on. You've actually succeeded. You've gone for 14 days without a cigarette. So please be kind to yourself. If you do fail, and you will, we all do, then please don't be too harsh on yourself. Give yourself another chance. In fact, give yourself a pat on the back for having achieved what you did achieve. You know what you need to remind yourself of is how long it took you to actually develop this habit in the first place. You didn't develop this habit in a week or two. You're not going to get rid of it overnight, I can assure you. Another thing, one habit at a time. Yes, I know we'd all like to wake up tomorrow morning being healthy eaters, going to the gym every day, being non-smokers and possibly teetotalers. It's not all going to happen in one day. If you've got a few things that you're trying to change about yourself, Decide which is the most important one for you, one habit at a time. And if you do it that way, you're much more likely to succeed in breaking that one habit. Then move on to the next one. Visualization might not be something that you've ever been interested in the past, but think about it. It's a very powerful tool. And if you can visualize your end goal, whatever it is, whether you see yourself as being fit or running a marathon or stopping smoking, drinking less, whatever it is, get the picture of that in your mind and see yourself as already having achieved your goal. Don't see yourself trying and failing perhaps and trying again. See yourself in your visualization as already having achieved your goal. Now, as a lot of you know, I am a hypnotherapist, and hypnotherapy is one of the things that I use mostly in helping people to kick bad habits. So if anybody would like any private hypnotherapy recordings made for your particular habit that you're trying to kick, please just email me. My email address is always in the description box, and with pleasure I will create one for you. It does help. It helps a lot. It helps you to visualize the end goal most of all, and by seeing the end goal, you're more motivated to get there. So it is a brilliant tool for kicking bad habits. And just a few closing tips. Obviously, if you're trying to stop eating takeaways, take those menus off the fridge. Don't tempt yourself. If you're trying to stop smoking, don't have cigarettes in the house. Don't go drinking coffee with somebody who's going to have a cigarette. You're just making it that much harder on yourself. If you're trying to eat more healthily, perhaps you might have to avoid those coffee and cake mornings for a while. Every morning on the way to work, you stop and you buy that beautiful pastry to have with your cup of coffee when you get to work. Go another way. Don't go past that bakery. Don't put temptation in your way. Surely you're seeing the pattern here, that you can't do this if you keep the same triggers in your life. You need to get rid of those triggers. You need to change some things in your life until you've kicked that habit. And then you can do those things again. Because hopefully by then you will have become more disciplined about that area of your life, and you can perhaps have that pastry and you'll have one once a week or once every second week instead of every day. But in the meantime, don't go that way. Drive another route to work. And remember, to break a bad habit takes about 10 weeks. You can't do it overnight. You can't rush it. And if you fall by the wayside, just pick yourself up, dust yourself off, and go back again. But you will find, if you can just keep going, whatever it is you're trying to change about yourself, that after about 10 weeks, you will start to actually forget about that thing. You'll go perhaps a whole day without thinking of what used to be consuming your mind all day. And that is really quite an incredible feeling. So in a nutshell, we've said, first of all, who you're doing this for. Please make it for you. Decide what those habits are that you're wanting to give up, things you're wanting to change about yourself. Decide what the triggers are, the things that make you break your resolution to not do that anymore. Identify those triggers, write them down, and then avoid them. Then, when you fail, and you will, pick yourself up and carry on. It's worth it. The end result is so worth it. Be kind to yourself when you fail. Don't rush it. Perhaps set yourself little goals, weekly goals, something that helps you get through the weeks, whatever works for you. And also, please reward yourself. Perhaps you can do weekly rewards. If you go a whole week without that pastry on the way to work, well, you know what? Maybe you can have one on a Saturday. Maybe that could be your reward. Or something else, whatever it is that you find is a reward for you. But reward yourself, because you know that once you've kicked that bad habit, once you've given up whatever it is that you don't want to do anymore, you're a champion and you deserve to be rewarded. Good luck with whatever it is that you're trying to change in your life. And I'd love to hear in the comments what you're trying to change, what habits you're trying to kick. And please, if anybody needs any extra help over and above this video, please email me. My address, as I said, is in the description box. From me until next time, big hugs to you. Bye for now.